Okay, well, it's 9 a.m., so good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final session for PPA 660 Organization Theory. Hope everyone's doing well and try and get you in and out of here within about an hour and a half or so today, depending on how our presentations go. According to my records, if they are correct, I believe we have about 8 presentations remaining for today. So as always, we will keep those to no more than 10 minutes and see how we do with that. Just real quick before we get into our presentations and finish up the course, just a reminder that your organization analysis paper as well as your final exam are both due by midnight tonight. I've already received a couple of papers and a couple of examinations and have graded those and returned those to you. So so far, so good on all of those. I have had a couple of questions about how long the paper should be and how long the final should be. The paper, not to use my old answer, it depends, but it really does depend upon you and your organization. For the most part, the papers are relatively short, 8, 9, 10 pages. Sometimes they go beyond that, and that is fine. Sometimes they're a little bit shorter. There's no real page limit to the organization analysis paper. As long as you address each one of the major points in the syllabus for that paper, then you're going to be absolutely fine. So no worries about length of the paper. For the final exam, you want to be as concise and parsimonious as you can be. So I usually advise for each one of those questions on the final exam, a couple of paragraphs, I think, for each question certainly would be sufficient. So there are 3 questions. So I think, 6 paragraphs altogether would certainly be enough to get the job done on the final exam. So those 2 assignments then are due by midnight tonight. I will spend tomorrow and Monday working on those, trying to get all the grading done and hopefully have all your final grades ready to input then by Tuesday. Then you get a little bit of a break. And then your next class, as you know, is 697 section number 1. That one starts in 2 weeks from today. There will be one Zoom session for that 2 weeks from today on that Saturday. It'll probably be Dr. Butts who will be running that session for you. Dr. Butts and I are going to split up that first section of 697 because he's now the department chair, and so there are some limitations in terms of how much he can teach. So he's going to do 2 units of the class. I'm going to do 1 unit. So we're going to split up the grading, but he'll probably take that first Saturday session for you in 2 weeks. Just kind of get you going. You've already seen the cases. I've made them available for you, so you kind of know how the process works already. So I think it'll be a pretty short session that he'll run with you just to make sure everyone is comfortable with how 697 works. So that's where we currently are. I guess, are there any questions before we get going for today? Okay. If not, then, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is Crystal. I know I said I was supposed to go first. I'm actually on the Zoom call on my phone right now because my computer decided to restart and update right now. So I'm going to have to jump on to my laptop to actually do my presentation. So as soon as I have it up and running, I'll just put a note in the chat and then I'll go after whoever is presenting whenever that happens.
Okay, that sounds good. No worries at all. We also, Janine had actually requested to go early today too. So we'll start with Janine and then you can take your time, Crystal, and whenever you're ready, like you said, just send me a note in chat and we'll get you up and going. So no worries.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, then without further ado, I'll turn it over to Janine.
Thank you, Professor. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, awesome. Can you still see it now?
Yes.
So, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Janine Solano, and I will be doing my presentation today on the city of Long Beach. We will be specifically focusing on the legislative department for the city today. And then these people who are pictured, they're not part of the legislative department, just wanted to give that for context. So a slight overview of what's to come. The city of Long Beach is located in Los Angeles County, has a population of about almost 500,000 people. Long Beach is unique, unlike other cities, because it has its own health department, port, public transportation, system, school district, and convention center. So these organizations operate simultaneously with the city government, but they are not directly underneath the city government. And we're looking at the legislative department specifically. So in focusing on this leg department, it includes the office of the mayor, who is the chief administrative officer for the department. And the mayor is also head for the ceremonial purposes and leads the city council meetings. So then we also have the council members, which the city is organized in a council manager system, and where the city council has more power than the mayor, who does not have a vote in city council, but does have the ability to veto. So there are 9 city council members and their staffers. The mayor and the council both appoint the city clerk, who also forms part of the legislative branch. The 9 council district offices are elected, and each of those elected then hire their own chief of staff and staffers to run the district offices. So the purpose of the legislative department is to lead the city through policy, whereas council creates it, the mayor helps in executing it by leading it through the city manager. And then the city clerk is the one who adheres that it is properly written and that the order of the process runs smoothly when creating that legislation process. So in looking at the city council specifically, there are illustrative management practices of the department. We see both mutual adjustment, both through the elected level and the staffer level. Direct supervision comes from the elected to the chief of staff, and sometimes the staff members, and then the chief of staff to the staffers. So while each district office is different, there is a standardization of work when we see it submitting legislative pieces to the city clerk's office. So each office may differ in how it goes about creating legislation, but the standardization is there in the submission process is the same. Everybody has to submit it through the same person, the same email that goes through, and the standard of how it's written, the memo style is all the same. In terms of how the legislation gets onto the members, that's a little bit different. I learned recently that one of the legislation pieces that we recently passed was actually written outside by a lawyer from a different business. So they actually wrote the legislation pieces, gave it to an elected official to say, hey, push this through. And that's how there was a ledge piece for that. So each office also has its standards of work outputs, noting that each staffer has a set of performance goals, and each district has its own way of sanctioning or rewarding workers. The level of which people are sanctioned or rewarded differs greatly by the office. And for the elected officials, obviously they are held accountable by the public and can be sanctioned through legal repercussions. So all staffers have a certain level of skill that can be specialized. In my example, I'm currently working with housing authority and eviction notices. So I've taken it upon myself to learn more about the specific, issues and work with the city attorney's office and different other departments. So in my district office, when there is an issue, a constituent comes about, they have an eviction notice, then I am specialized in that, but I can go and easily help them. But most of our staffers kind of have to be able to, do the work around for everybody. We are all elected, well, the elected officials and the staffers have all been taken an oath to defend the Constitution of the country and of the state. So there is an internalized value system for the most part where we actually take pride in our work. There are some exceptions for some people. So the legislative department has the ideal type bureaucracy in that there are fixed official duties within the elected and the staffers, as well as different offices of the department. The hierarchy authority exists, so the council members cannot tell police members orders, so we cannot give orders directly to the police. However, we can tell the city manager, who then tells police where we need more help. Usually though, police have been very friendly and supportive in taking directives from city council members. So there is this kind of like unspoken rule on that. But while there are systems of rules established by the municipal code, we do see social rules that just comes along with being an elected official and having that political framework. So for Taylor's scientific management theory, Again, there are task specialization differs among the different offices. Clerks have their specific job duties where we as staffers cannot cross, right? We cannot go into their offices, and we cannot help with like the election work, or and it is even frowned upon to have different conversations with them that doesn't have to do with certain policies. So the performance is the way performance is managed according to its office. The clerk's office has their own way, while each chief of staff has their own process. It is very individualized according to the district office. However, there is an overarching umbrella process that kind of waves over them. Of course, there's centralized planning and control, with elected officials spearing that at the head of each of their offices. In terms of human relations theories, some of Felile's apply to the legislative department. So council members are elected officials and are supposed to represent the interests of the majority, but can be swayed by political interests. Our democracy is flawed, and we at the council level see the passiveness of constituents. So not everyone votes in the primaries, let alone when it's a special election. So the current elected that I work for won by a slight difference in a special election. So as we are in current campaign mode right now, I can see a lot of constituents who are unsatisfied with the system, but also refuse to take part into fix it themselves and kind of make it better, which then leads to conflict that is usually the same conflict from neighborhood associations. Usually in those neighborhood associations, when we're trying to resolve conflict through integration, I actually see more domination than compromise. And it's one idea just usually trampling over the other. Recently, we had a coffee with the cop, but we kind of did a taco edition. And it was a community time for community members to kind of come together and have a conversation with police to hopefully heal the rift. But again, there was public domination of what they expect the police to do and what not to do, as opposed to giving an option for integration. And because of the heads of the mayor and the council members are elected officials, politicians are there's some social disorganization and human irrationality. A prime example would be given that an elected wanted to give thousands of dollars to an organization without vetting them or establishing rules for the grants. And by thousands, it was a $10,000 grant, which was the largest in our history. And everyone else kind of saw that as crazy and irrational. But of course, these are just the people that we work with. And so council members and staffers are motivated by the legal compliance that we are storing in. And the instrumental reward is helping the constituents and knowing that you are part of a group that can make a difference, holding such high power. In terms of system theories and analyzing them, the council members are operating within an open systems theory. They do have the need to acquire resources, and that would be either through support from people, from funding events, to sponsorships. They are always on the lookout to see how they can make a connection with other people. And most members must adapt to the uncertain environment that comes with the political changes. In terms of, for the staffers, we have a more rational goal model. We are more adhered to planning and goal setting, and our goal is to make sure that our constituents are well and that our elected official gets reelected so that we can keep our jobs. And by doing that, we do that through the plan, do, check, and act cycle. So something that I always make sure that we do is that whenever we have a constituent complaint, that we plan on how to fix it, that we do the help that we can, that we check, and then act again as we need to strategize to make sure that we are being able to complete the work and to better ourselves in the way that we adhere and address constituent complaints to make sure that everything is running as smoothly as possible. So that is my presentation with the City of Long Beach.
Excellent. Thank you, Janine. Very well done. Any questions or observations? I like the discussion of the continuous improvement cycle in terms of constituent relationships. I think that was a really nice connection. So very good. Okay. Thank you, Janine. Let's see. Next up, I think I'll open it up and just let anyone who hasn't gone yet, if anyone wants to volunteer to go next, feel free.
I'm willing to go, Professor.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, actually, let me share my video. I didn't realize. Okay, perfect. Oh, wait, I removed it. Sorry, give me a sec. I forgot how to. Are you still able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Sorry, it's been a while. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I will be presenting on the Disability Rights Legal Center, which was my former employer. So a little bit on the organization's background. So the Disability Rights Legal Center was founded in 1975, and it is a small nonprofit. It is a public interest advocacy organization that protects the civil rights of people with disabilities. The Disability Rights Legal Center is a pretty small nonprofit compared to other nonprofits that do similar work, such as Disability Rights California. And I think one of our peers also presented on that organization as well. However, despite being a small organization, you know, they do do a lot of significant work in Southern California. DRLC is composed of about 16 staff members, and the office is based out of LA. DRLC is also composed of several departments, such as administration, which is the department that is responsible for maintaining, you know, the organization up and running. We also have the litigation department, which is composed of the litigation director, the attorneys, and the support staff. And they essentially litigate the cases that come to the organization. And they also assist with special education cases as well. We also have the Cancer Legal Resource Center, and that is another sub-program within the Disability Rights Legal Center that provides information through its National Assistance Telephone Line. It provides outreach programs and community activities to educate and to support cancer patients, their families, healthcare professionals, and advocates on matters like maintaining employment, you know, treatment, accessing healthcare and government benefits, talking about medical leave and estate planning. And lastly, we also have the community advocacy program. And that program is essentially the intake program. And it is a pretty integral part of the organization because it is essentially how the DRLC obtains 90% of its cases. And as an employee there, I was fortunate enough to be able to hold positions in every single department here, which was a valuable experience because I, was able to understand the functions and the importance of each department. Okay, so illustrative management practices. So in terms of illustrative management practices, the Disability Rights Legal Center represents the model of organization effectiveness because it is essentially their duty to serve and support the needs of the community when their civil rights as people with disabilities have been violated. In terms of mechanisms for coordination and control, the DRLC has subsystems or departments in our case to help coordinate the activities of the people within the organization. As I had mentioned during the introduction, there are 4 departments within the DRLC, which are administration, litigation, CLRC, and CAP. And lastly, motivating employee motivation. I felt that it was always a priority for management at DRLC. I think that, besides the yearly salary increases, they also granted their staff with generous discretionary bonuses based on staff performance. Staff were also encouraged to seek trainings and educational advancement opportunities, all paid for by DRLC. Staff outings, or mixers, as we call them during the pandemic, were also a priority, and each department held their own happy hour type thing, which wasn't really a happy hour. It was really just an opportunity to really bond with your team every other Friday. And I surprisingly, enjoyed these events because it was really just a bonding event with your immediate team. It wasn't like you were dealing with the awkwardness of the entire organization. And it was really just, getting together, talking about your week, playing games via Zoom. And they also awarded us with like a meal stipend. So we'd order food and just talk over Zoom. So I think that was, I really appreciated their effort for us to maintain that connection during that time. Okay, so elements of classical organization theory. So DRLC uses scientific methods to analyze the efficiency and performance of its staff members through 6-month evaluations, which I think is very beneficial because it gives staff a chance to understand the things that they are doing well or maybe not so well. So it gives them the opportunity to work, on those things sooner rather than later. I don't know if this is how they continue to do things now, but it was when I was there. And then also DRLC implements Weberian's bureaucracy, as it is an organization that maintains a clear division of responsibilities. And there is also a hierarchy structure within. So each department has a supervisor and everyone, follows a chain of command. So elements of human relations theory. So I think the Disability Rights Legal Center does a pretty good job at implementing Fullett's organization theory by focusing on the individual and promoting autonomy. So a basic example of this would be, during the pandemic and all the uncertainty that was going on, management really made it an effort to have all staff participate in the conversation about teleworking. And most staff did express that they wanted to remain at home full-time, and that is how the organization is currently, operating. They're 100% remote, which I think is great. Mayo's organizational theory is also implemented at DRLC. Like I mentioned before, DRLC does a pretty good job at having their supervisors take interest in their staff, treat their opinions as valuable, and it seems like they enjoy interacting. During my time as the CAP coordinator, I was responsible for supervising a group of undergraduate interns who assisted with the intake program. And I also made it a priority to make them feel a part of our staff, despite being interns. So I made sure to hold monthly check-ins with them. I tried to organize fun activities. And I did realize early on that it was important for me to create an environment where they felt valued and supported. I also made sure to constantly ask for feedback on how I can improve the program. And one suggestion that I had received from one of the interns was that they wanted to participate in the weekly litigation meetings, which is where the intakes were presented on a weekly basis. So I took that advice, I incorporated them to our weekly meetings, and they really appreciated. I think they really enjoyed that opportunity because it provided them that direct interaction with attorneys. And I also appreciated that attorneys really made them feel a part of the team. They would ask them questions and they would have them present the intakes they were conducting. So I think all in all, they left those internships content and full of knowledge. Okay, DRLC also applies in open system organization theory by implementing surveys. These are voluntarily collected after each online intake is submitted, and it really helps us understand if our current processes are working or not. For example, thanks to these surveys, we realized that the current intake system needed to be modified. We previously had a very generic intake system where people would just type what their issue was and they would just submit it. So what we did instead was that we created an intake system, where people, we just listed a lot of legal issues. And, based on the legal issue, they would select certain specific questions would auto-populate for us to be able to gather as much detail as possible in order to be able to make the best informed analysis on their case. And this also helped with efficiency because it avoided us, like, for example, if a client submitted, a 2-sentence intake, right? That meant that we would have to contact them again, to be able to collect more information. And then oftentimes we were also dealing with, we were just playing phone tag, right? Which was not efficient. So surveys, were very helpful. And lastly, I think Weber's theory of bureaucratic management has an impact on the excellence of the organization. The overall structure, direct supervision, hierarchy management structure, achievement-based advancement is what shapes the organization to be what it is now. I think I really appreciated the opportunities I was given, the opportunities I was given, throughout my time with the DRLC, right? I started as an administrative assistant, and very early on, I was assigned, special projects that really pushed me to grow, to be the professional that I am today. So all in all, I was very happy with my time there. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Very well done. Any questions or comments or observations? Okay, those are great slides. I always, after these presentations, realize I need to pick up my slide game a little bit because you're all so good with the slides, but that was excellent. Very engaging. Okay, good job. Well done. Okay, let's see.
I can go next, Professor. I'm ready now.
Oh, okay, great. Crystal?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right, floor is yours.
Start my video. Okay, and then actually, I'm afraid my internet is going to be wonky, so I'm not going to do the video just so it doesn't, hopefully it doesn't cut out.
Yeah, that's fine. I know sometimes I do the same thing if my internet's unstable.
Wi-Fi, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. And then if I do this and I do show presenter view, can you guys see my notes too?
No, we just see the slides right now.
Okay, good. Okay, let me go over. So for my organizational analysis, I am doing it on the City of Torrance, which is my employer. In terms of the introduction and background for the city, so it is a charter city that was established in 1947 as a charter city. We do have our own city charter that we abide by in terms of all of the ordinances that govern the city as a whole. We do have a city council, city manager form of municipal government. So while the city council is all elected officials, the city manager is an appointed position by the city council. Currently, the city has a population of 145,546 roughly. And we have 14 departments which operate collectively to provide public services. And the city has an annual fiscal budget of 395 million each year. So in terms of the city departments, this shows the organizational breakdown. So ultimately, we answer to the residents of the city of Torrance. They have the electing power in terms of who they want to represent them on the city council. Also, in terms of elected officials is also the city treasurer and the city clerk. And then below that, you see the city manager as an appointed position, and also the city attorney. And the city attorney, the city manager basically is our executive director for the entire organization. And then the city attorney acts as the general counsel to the city council and the city at large. Then below that, we have all of the different city departments. So the public works, transit, fire, police, all of those, they are independent departments, each with a department head, but they do all have to work collectively to provide public services, including police and fire protection, sanitation and water services, airport and bus transit services, the construction and maintenance of streets and the city's infrastructure, as well as recreational activities. So in terms of the 4 models of organizational effectiveness, we have the human relations model, the open systems model, rational goal model, and internal process model. Just to quickly touch base, so with the human relations model, focusing internally on the people who comprise the organization, we do have our own human resources department. So that is a major function of internal city operations. And that something we're actually really struggling with right now with the labor market, trying to attract and retain employees and boosting morale. With the open systems model, focusing on the external needs of the organization, really with the pandemic, we had a cybersecurity attack in March of 2020. So just all kind of uncertainties going on that we really need to, or we're trying to position ourselves better so that if should these things ever happen again, we are, I guess, fortifying our exposure to risk. With the rational goal model, focusing on the planning and goal setting to achieve organizational goals. This really comes into play with our strategic plan, which is a 10-year plan that is constantly changing depending on internal and external circumstances. And then with the internal process model, which focuses on information management and communications. We are moving away from paper to more electronic processes to try to make the information management and communications more efficient within the city. Looking at the 6 mechanisms for coordinating and controlling work activities, starting with mutual adjustment. So the workers will consult with each other informally about what needs to be accomplished and why. That is happening a lot more virtually these days than anything, but we do have a lot of those informal conversations when we have, one-on-ones with directors and that kind of stuff to try to improve how things are accomplished. Direct supervision. So we do have the structure in terms of the organization is very hierarchical, but with the direct supervision, each unit has their specific supervisor that oversees a team. And then from there, the supervisors meet with their supervisors and so on and so forth. Standardization of work practices. So I guess it would be with work processes, work outputs, and worker skills. All of these things from the job descriptions to the the pay ranges all the way to how we actually execute the work in terms of the processes and outputs. Everything is very much standardized in terms of workflows, so that if it starts in one place, depending on what the task at hand can be, starts in one place, and ultimately it will always end at the same place, regardless of which department is submitting or executing the process. And then in terms of the standardization of values, so the leaders of the city communicate and act upon what the vision of what the organization exists to do. In our terms as a city, we are very much public service related. So making sure that police and fire continuously have the resources they need to keep the city safe. Let's say the community services department has enough funding to provide recreational activities, which right now we're in a bit of a sticky budget situation, and a lot of the recreational and arts programs are facing budget cuts and elimination ultimately. So a lot of those things are guided by basically the resources that we have at hand, and then the leadership roles that we have in place. And a lot of those, just going back, a lot of, in terms of the standardization of values, we do see a lot of conflicting values. So later we'll talk about how the, like especially Follett's theories really is, with the competing values, how to make the city continue to run efficiently and effectively, even with all of the competing values at hand. In terms of these 4 strategies for motivating employees, we absolutely have the legal compliance, instrumental rewards, job identification, and goal congruence. With the legal compliance, I mean, as a city, we are confined by the laws that allow us or give us the authority and the power to execute the things that we do in terms of how we're spending public funds and revenues that are generated by publicly paid tax dollars. For instrumental rewards, so we do have the tangible and the intangible rewards to try to retain the employees that we have, which we are struggling with as we are, having people leave left and right. Oh, sorry. And then for the job identification, so whenever people are coming into the city, let's say in terms of recruiting a new employee, the job description basically lays out everything that someone is, if someone is applying, it tells you everything that the role will require in terms of skills and abilities. And with that job identification, we're trying to attract people that identify with that specific type of job. So that's just one example. And then with the goal congruence, so the values and the goals of the employees and those of the organization, we're trying to make sure that we constantly align them. One big thing right now is definitely the work from home or the telework that we are looking into. Traditionally, a city or municipal government agency has always been, an in-office operation type thing, but we are going to start a pilot program to see about a new work from home strategy as part of aligning, some of the values of the employees and those of the organization. Okay, so moving on to theory of Max Weber's theory of bureaucracy. With the theory of bureaucracy, the implications in terms of, I guess, the city, the organizations need to be rational instruments, need to determine the appropriate degree of bureaucratization. There is a bias towards stability and predictability. structure as a basis for coordination and control is important. And then lastly, the formal authority as a basis for motivating employees. All of these things are part of what the city does have to deal with. So with the bureaucratic administration is probably the biggest thing that, you know, we have to abide by. The bureaucracy that is, well, if we want to spend X amount of dollars, let's say it's $1 million project, before we can do that, we first have to make sure that it is in line with state mandates. So certain funds, let's say if the transit department has a grant, that grant can only be used for transit related operations. So if, let's say, the transit department says, okay, we want to spend this money on X, Y, or Z. It's $1 million project. Even though we already have the money, we have to go to council to seek approval and authorization to appropriate and spend those funds accordingly. And then from there, once we have council approval, then we go back and we do the contract process, which is a totally separate process that involves the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. So there are so many steps that have to take place prior to doing anything within the organization, anything major, I should say. With Frederick Taylor's scientific management theory, here we are looking at the primary focuses of this theory. We're looking at the elimination of waste, putting management on a rational basis, standardization of work, and economic rewards. So in terms of the city as an organization, we are trying to move into more of this scientific management theory kind of model, where we're trying to go more from, let's say, paper to electronic, could just be one example. Putting management on a rational basis, it's, you know, having everybody, even with the subordinates carrying out the work, we have to have management accountable and responsible for the work that's being performed. And then with the economic rewards, this is something that we are also struggling with. So for example, in the finance department, which is the department that I work for, an account clerk, the pay grade, or I should say a senior account clerk, the pay grade, our starting or our highest step in terms of pay is the first step at other cities. So we're trying to pass the sales tax measure in hopes of being able to give everyone pay raises, which except for police and fire, all other city employees have not received any kind of pay increase or raise, if you will, in the past 2 years. So we are constantly, again, losing people because of the money factor, that people, although it may not be, you know, ultimately what decides if someone's happy or not at their job, but it is still something that's very important, especially with the way the economy is going with inflation and just everything getting more and more expensive as time goes on.
We're starting to run a little bit long, so you got about a minute or two left.
Whoa, okay. So for administrative management theory, we're looking at organizing by function and having clear lines of authority. That's absolutely something when we were looking at the organizational structure. We do have the clear lines of authority and organizing by function in terms of the city departments and what they do for the public services that the city offers. Pre-human relations theory, here we have depersonalizing authority, collective problem solving and participative management as the primary implications. We are absolutely moving into that direction with the new leadership that we have. After 2020, every single executive or department head that was previously in place retired, and now we have a completely new set of directors. And so they are absolutely moving into this kind of era of taking that that authority and disseminating, the authority to more staff, primarily because we're so short-staffed and we're kind of having to go in that direction. Theory of social disorganization and human irrationality. So the only thing with this one, although I think we are having an era of social disorganization and irrational tendencies in general across the country, but here we're looking at maintaining a positive work environment, personal attention and sympathetic treatment, relaxed supervision, cohesive work groups to battle things, especially such as anti-government ideologies, which we're struggling with as well, and things such as homelessness that as a city we've never done before. Participative management theory, creating supportive workplace relationships, group decision-making and supervision, high performance expectations, and building human capacity. Again, with the new leadership that's in place, we're absolutely going into this participative management type of structure within the organization. For human resources theory, we are seeing a conflict specifically between theory X and theory Y, where we have the new leadership that's trying to go toward theory Y, but we still have some middle level managers and supervisors that are still in the theory X mode. So we're seeing a lot of clash there. And then in terms of the natural systems perspectives, the maintenance needs and the inducement contribution equilibrium and moral leadership is something that we are working on. Structural functional theory. This is something that is really important because adjusting the structure in response to environmental conditions is something that we have been facing recently. I mean, I think everybody has with the pandemic. And then open systems perspective in terms of contingency thinking and strategic planning. Strategic plans are something that the city does every 10 years, as I previously mentioned, and it is constantly updated based on what's happening internally and externally. And then lastly, so the impact of organization on excellence, quality management theory. Here we're looking at stakeholder satisfaction, continuous improvement, and interdependent work systems. The stakeholder satisfaction for the city is a big deal because everything is major decisions do have to be voted on, whether it's by the residents for a sales tax measure or city council to allow for us to spend $1 million on turf within a city park, let's say. So that concludes my presentation. Sorry I went over, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Crystal. No worries. I know sometimes there's a lot of information to pack in, but
yes.
Very well done. Very comprehensive. Any questions or comments?
Just a quick question about, she had a slide which had talked about cybernetics. I just wanted to ask, what is the, just an example on how the cybernetics applicability in the organization?
Yeah, so one thing that we recently started to implement, previously we did have just very straightforward like employee evaluations where the supervisor is telling the employee how their performance is going and the supervisor is the one that rates it. Informally, they do ask for feedback, but that's how it has been in the past. Now we're moving toward more of like a 360 type of evaluation where the supervisor does still do the evaluation based on the subordinate's performance, but then subordinates are now able to give feedback in terms of the leadership. So how is the supervisor performing as a supervisor? How is the finance director performing as a director? So providing that feedback is a big change that is happening that we actually didn't have before. So that's why I included that in there. Good question, Faisal. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, that's a good question, good response. And we've seen more and more 360 evaluations being incorporated into organizations, and sometimes they're accepted relatively well. Sometimes supervisors really kind of push back on the idea of a 360 evaluation. But well done. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I think
you can go ahead,
Owen?
Steve.
Steve. Okay.
Sorry, Owen, I snaked you. No worries, all good. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, hi everybody. Happy Saturday. Try to stay under the time limit here. So my organizational analysis was on the Visalia Fire Department. Surprise. Give you a quick history of the city of Visalia before I get into the organization. So the Visalia Fire Department is a medium-sized fire department located in Central California between San Francisco and Los Angeles at the base of Sequoia National Park and the Sierra Nevada Mountains. We are the home of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the lower 48 states. The population as of 2020 is 141,384 people. We're considered to be one of the fastest growing cities in California right now. There's a lot of development happening, so I'd be curious to see what the number is now. That's a 2-year-old stat, but that's the most recent I could get. Cover about 37 square miles, mostly flat terrain. The geographical area was first settled by Native Americans a couple hundred years ago or a few hundred years ago. And agriculture and farming is still the largest driving force of the economy. Median household income is about $73,000, and about 23% of the population is college educated to a bachelor's degree or higher. It was also one of the first cities in California to be established and achieve its statehood in 1850. Visalia Fire was established in 1879 and just celebrated its 150th anniversary, making it one of the oldest fire departments in the state, rich in history and tradition. In 2018, the most recent stats I could get, Visalia Fire responded to 15,229 calls for service from we have 6 fire stations. Downtown Station 51 has 3 apparatus for a total of 5 engines, 2 trucks, 1 squad, and 1 battalion chief on duty. We have 82 personnel pictured on bottom, working a 4896 shift schedule. We're an ISO 3 department, which gives you a mid to higher grade insurance rating on your property insurance. So like if you own a home there, they measure like the hydrants and the fire department's service delivery, and you get like a little bit better price on your homeowner's insurance and those kinds of things. And we average an annual fire loss of a little over $7 million, meaning we are burning it down on the reg. Oops. So we are an all hazard fire department. We're all risk, all hazard, meaning we represent every level of hazard response. So that includes fire, medical, traffic accidents, technical rescues, hazardous materials, swift water, wildfires, earthquakes, all other disasters. And yes, we will even get your cat out of the tree for you if you ask. We are home of the World Ag Expo, the largest agriculture exposition in the world that draws about 100,000 farmers who travel there worldwide every February. There was a quote in the Tompkins text that stood out to me about illustrative management. And even Tompkins said, it's not good enough for firefighters to arrive at a fire in 20 minutes if they're fully capable of arriving in 12. Because government agencies exist to serve the public interest, and it is essential that they perform in a superior manner. So to me, that means the quality of service for what we do is too important to rely only on cost effectiveness. So organizational effectiveness is critical. So the Tompkins text offered the four main traits of illustrative management. There's human relations model, the open systems model, internal process model, and the rational goal model. And we share traits that overlap all four, spending most of our time with the open systems model. So at the 30,000 foot elevation view, we're an open systems model, but depending on what's happening at that moment, we may align more closely to one of these other ones. For example, the internal process model is really important because if we have like an emergency scene, we need to have the command and control aspect of that. It's just too important. But the human relations model is more appropriate for like station life. So if we're just doing everyday station life, I'm around my crew and I'm managing or leading them, it's important to have like social cohesion and those kinds of things, because we live together for 2 days, and at some point dinner time is going to come around and we're all going to be sitting around the table and somebody's going to say, hey man, can you pass the salt? So we want to make sure we're all getting along and that kind of thing. As far as motivation goes, motivating firefighters is easy. By nature, the work is highly fulfilling and gives us a deep sense of purpose and meaning. Many firefighters, myself included, would even say that they believe they're serving their calling. I don't believe managers necessarily have to go out of their way to strategize motivating employees to serve the mission. We're already kind of doing it on our own, although they should still model it. So behavioral psychologist Katz and Kahn had 3 recommendations. 1, people join and remain with the organization in the long term. 2, employees perform their work roles dependently or meet or exceed established performance standards. And 3, require individual behaviors go well beyond dependable role performance. We do all of that, but my recommendation for managers, and something I strive to do, is to support those individual behaviors by putting an emphasis on recruitment and retention, creating a healthy work culture, and publicly rewarding excellence, which I'll get to a little bit later too. So classic organization theories, such as the Weberian bureaucratic structure and scientific management theory, are very close parallels with Visalia Fire in many ways. Weber's ideal bureaucracy very closely describes most fire departments, including us, especially down to the functions of like span of control and unity of command, which are 2 terms that we practice very often. My job as a fire captain is very heavily dependent on my ability to manage my span of control, especially on emergency scenes, but also in everyday station life. So this picture is a call that happened last summer, and the driver of this vehicle caused a rollover on Highway 198, and he was pinned in. So we had several different units there. You can see it quickly becomes chaotic, and you have to manage that chaos. And the way to do that is with span of control. Another trait is division of labor. So division of labor is critical in every fire department. We have an org chart that looks like 1 fire chief, 4 battalion chiefs, 22 captains, 21 engineers, and 28 firefighter paramedics. And that also is the chain of command. So again, in this picture, you can see the one gentleman with the white helmet. That's the battalion chief, and he is the orchestra conductor. So he's leading everybody, he's plugging everybody into their roles, and he's thinking at their strategic level. And then the gentlemen in the red helmets, those are captains. They're working for the battalion chief. They're functioning at the tactical level. And then everybody else in the yellow helmets, that's everyone else. They're the worker bees. So they're the ones actually doing the task level functions. You can see the gentleman kneeling down by the car. He's stabilizing the vehicle. They're doing those task level things. So span of control, division of labor, and unity of command are huge. Taylor scientific management is also paralleled at Visalia Fire, such as with standardization. So every task must be standardized. We all went through the same fire academy. We all know the same way of pulling hose, the same way of forcing a door, the same way of doing vertical ventilation. etc. That increases efficiency and reduces the likelihood of mistakes. So back to the picture again, all I have to do is tell my engineer, hey, I need you to stabilize this vehicle. And then they automatically know, okay, it's this tool, that place, etc. Paramedic protocols are also written in the same way. Once a firefighter paramedic makes a differential field diagnosis on a medical call, they select a treatment protocol, and then you execute that protocol the same way every time. Human relations theory in Visalia fire is also very prevalent, but we kind of have to be careful with this one. Sorry, I know I'm getting close on time. I'll sum it up. But Follett's on the giving of orders, she advocates for power with as opposed to power over, and asks the question, how do you prioritize the giving of orders versus giving no orders? Where I see this most prevalent is with SOPs or standard operating procedures. So we love these, we have tons of them. Everybody kind of knows what they are, or they should know what they are, but we can't have an SOP for everything. So we can have an SOP for a grooming standard that says, hey, you can only have a mustache because your SCBA mask has to seal to your face. And if you have a beard, it won't seal. So as a supervisor, I don't have to say, here's why you can't have a beard. They just automatically know because it's in the SOP. But on emergency scenes, we need to have more latitude for discretion to make decisions, because sometimes things just change so rapidly. We can't necessarily have human relations theory on emergency scenes. That's kind of more applicable for other areas. I was delighted to hear many other classmates point out the theory X and theory Y dichotomy. I thought that my organization was the only one where the tenured supervisors were stuck in theory X and the young leadership leaned more towards theory Y, but it sounds like that's fairly widespread among the workforce, and we are not unique. Systems theory in Visalia fire, we closely represent an open systems theory. The book described it as being living creatures seeking to survive in an uncertain and often hostile environment. I love the word hostile. Everything we do is in a hostile environment for the most part. This picture was a fire that happened about 3 weeks ago on May 1st. We also respond statewide with like the California mutual aid requirement. And then also we're very visible in the public. So you see us out driving around everywhere. You see us out in uniform. You're forming your judgments of us. You see us in the grocery store. And yes, we do pay for our dinners with our own money. Not everybody knows that, but we get asked that question a lot. And quality of service is very heavily influenced by the perception of us. So for example, during the recession, we took a lot of budget cuts and lost service delivery. But usually when firefighters get publicly injured or killed in the news, then things get better and it's easier to increase service delivery. So there was national news fire that happened 2 years ago, which is called the Porterville Library fire, where we had 2 line of duty deaths of 2 firefighters. I'm sure you all heard about it. And that happened about 20 miles from my station. And since then, it's been a lot easier to get the things that we need. Unfortunately, there was a sacrifice of life made, but it's easier to justify needs. Impact on excellence. We have a lot of total quality management, mostly continuous improvement. This is especially true for new firefighters. Besides testing and hiring interviews, they must pass an arduous background investigation, physical agility test, and medical exam. Once they're hired, they must then complete a 10-week recruit academy, followed by a 12-month probationary period where they can be terminated at any time. During that 12-month probation, they're responsible for passing several tests and evaluations. We unrelentingly hammer our mission statement into them until they can recite it by memory. And not everybody successfully completes their rookie year, but those that are due are held to a higher conductive standard, even off duty, where you can still be disciplined for conduct unbecoming. Excellence is not really recognized as much as it is expected in Visalia fire. Unfortunately, there are a lot of punitive actions for not doing your job, but not a whole lot of rewards for doing it well. I would like to see us work on that in the future. This picture, these 3 gentlemen were all promoted. So this was after a promotion ceremony where you get to invite your family, you get your badge pinned on you in front of everybody. The chief says something nice about you, and then they take you through the council chambers, present you to council, and you're kind of recognized that way. But And those are really special days, but those only happen a couple times in your career. For some people, they only happen once or twice. Others, it's more. And there are other departments where they do a better job of publicly recognizing excellence. Like if you make a save on a call, they do a ceremony for that, or the chief might come by the station and give you a gift or something that the department paid for. And that's it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions?
Sorry, I went over.
That's good. That's fine.
May I just give an observation?
Go ahead.
Steve, you guys get recognized for doing your work. We in public works get recognized when we don't do our work. That's the irony of it.
We get scrutinized for not doing our jobs sometimes too, Faisal. You're not alone.
Yeah, what I like to is the discussion about, you know, how it's not surprising to see some Theory X type of management, and especially in a paramilitary organization from more veteran leaders. But we do see it all across public bureaucracy, regardless of what organization. There's always usually always some Theory X type of component there. So even though we usually associate that with paramilitary organizations, it really is kind of spread across the entire public bureaucracy. So good job. Well done. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I think Owen is next in our queue.
Hey, everyone. Great presentation there, Steve. Okay, let me get my screen share going. Okay. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome. Okay, good morning, everyone. I decided to do my organizational analysis paper on Long Beach Animal Care Services, abbreviated as LBACS for the rest of this presentation. In terms of the summary, it's the same sort of things. We'll be taking a look at the organization through the different perspectives and theories that we've been learning throughout the class. For some introduction and background on the organization, the org's aim is to promote public safety and provide the largest provide local humane treatment for animals in the hopes of creating the largest safe city in California for humans and animals alike. It's a pretty lofty goal. The organization also services 4 additional cities as contract cities. These are Cerritos, Los Alamitos, Seal Beach, and Signal Hill. So it's got quite a large breadth, and that makes it even more impressive when you take a look at the annual budget and the amount of employees that the organization works with. So the organization only has around 50 employees at any given time. And these are even further split between 8 different service areas. The most prominent among these service areas are the emergency response team, which is animal control. They respond to any sort of animal related incidents, as well as investigations into animal abuse or municipal code violation. So this is kind of one of the more large, sizable teams of peer employees. And then the next biggest subset or service area is with the kennel and veterinary services that are housed at the Long Beach location, which I have a picture of in the bottom there. And the organization operates on only an annual budget of around $4 million. I think it was 4.1 million in 2019. And over half of that comes from self-generated revenues, either through donations, service fees, or fundraising efforts. So the organization is really punching above its weight class in terms of the amount of funding that it gets, the employees that it has, and the amount of work that it gets done. So moving forward, looking at some of the illustrative management practices of LBACS, I would say that the human relations model best encapsulates LBACS. This is for several reasons. First of all, in terms of the mechanisms for controlling activities, we see a lot of human relations parallels, including some direct supervision where possible, some standardization of work processes, standardizations of record keeping, and then weekly goal-oriented mornings or weekly goal-oriented meetings in the morning on a weekly basis, touching base with the team, incorporating feedback, and promoting coordination ultimately. But where the human relations model really stands out or is most apparent is in the methods for motivating employees. And this is because in a similar vein to Steve and the Visalia Fire Department, the work that LBACS does is very rewarding to certain types of people. Specifically, animal rights activists or animal lovers really get a lot out of servicing the animals and trying to provide a safe and welcoming environment for them. So we have a lot of value congruence within the organization that really binds everyone together and forms a really great camaraderie. And everyone's on the same page. Everyone wants the best for the animals and the safest environment for the humans as well. So it's a really great organizational cohesion method. Additionally, there's the legal imperative to actually service these animals and do animal control calls and animal abuse situations correctly. There is a legal imperative in this country to protect animals to a certain extent. So that obviously has to be fulfilled by the organization. And then there is a pretty significant culture of internal promotion. Again, the camaraderie aspect means that for those people that really have the value structure and want to stay with the organization, they get promoted, they grow further in the organization, and all of these incentivize workers to do their best, stay within the org, and foster good relationships. Moving on to a lens through looking at the organization through some classical organizational theories, we can see the LBACS does loosely resemble Weber's ideal bureaucracy, as with most public organizations today, through the use of fixed official duties, system of rules, written documentation, hierarchical authority. All this division of labor and such is just a very good basic way to orient an organization and to structure it. But obviously there's been quite a lot of theory made since then. So it's not one-to-one, and it's really not a very strict organization in the sense that Weber envisioned, but it does share many of the structural features. And then moving on to Taylor's scientific management approach, we see an emphasis on task specialization and standardization among certain focus areas, specifically in animal control or in kennel services. Everyone's on the same page in terms of their tasks. It's very easy to track what everyone is doing and to standardize the processes for performing the different tasks. And then we see an implementation of various performance metrics. These help track the actions of different subsects. Again, animal control would be probably a very prominent example of this, but just how many service calls they're making, how many are successful. The different performance metrics include like euthanasia rates for the kennel. And there's just lots of different performance metrics to follow along and to guide and augment the organization's performance and needs. And then, moving on to the neoclassical organization theories, mostly human relations, obviously. And then we have Follett's theories. Leadership takes a very active role in the organization, but isn't delineative. It's very much a cooperative effort. They'll help and walk anybody through anything walk anybody who has issues through the issues that they're facing. There's a fairly standardized integration of concerns where employees of all different service areas are free to express themselves in the weekly meetings. And then we see Follett's 4 principles of organization in practice quite a bit in terms of the proactive coordination with different employees and staff members. Incorporating their feedback, getting to them early and talking to them directly is very much like the practice method within the org. And then in terms of McGregor's theories of X and Y, we see kind of differing results in different service areas. For some of the more traditional oriented service areas, such as like animal control or the investigators, also an element of animal control, there is kind of a combination of X and Y in that a lot of the management does take that X approach. And while there is some value, there are values that influence and encourage workers to want to be there. I think that is a little bit less so for the animal control guys because they have to do some unpleasant things as well, you know what I mean? But in other areas, other service areas, specifically the kennel and veterinary services, there's a very strong Y culture. The people that are there want to be there because they want to help the animals. It's a very fulfilling career path for the right type of person, and usually the right type of people find and end up in these certain service areas. So the culture can really lean in towards Y, and you know, there's very strong value cohesion in that sense that kind of leads it in that direction. Moving on to systems theory, I would say that the org best represents kind of an open systems approach. This is because they have to respond to a lot of different external factors, and the operations of the organization are very much determined upon what's going on, how much funding they have, and all of these different things. So again, they face pressure from the public in certain circumstances. If there are coyotes that are killing too many pets, you know, they got to go respond to that. And all of these different needs and demands from the public, they have to acquiesce and kind of meet where possible. But as I was saying earlier, part of the organization's real struggle is difficulty securing annual funding. They really only get a little over 2 million from local governments, and the rest is up to them to fundraise and make the best of it. So this is a real limiting factor that they kind of have to orient their operations based on how much funding they have on any given year. And then from that funding issue, we have kind of an adaptive org structure and decision making based on environmental factors. If you don't have the money to do proactive services or host a large animal control team or take on new pets in the kennel and all these different things, that it's very much variable. The org has to adjust to those demands, and then additionally, the management style and goals shift to reflect the need of the organization and the funding and all of the pressures from the public as well. So again, it's very responsive to the outside influences and outside externalities. So I think while it might share some features with a natural systems theory, I think open systems theory much better represents it. And then finally, we have the impact of the organization on excellence. So there are several ways in which I think the organization both meets and attains excellence, but also falls short in several areas. Primarily in terms of attaining excellence, the values and organizational culture are significant in that variety. There's a very much proactive attitude in terms of helping the animals and going about one's duties with a smile, with, you know, a lot of effort and love for what you're doing. And I think that really influences excellent work within the organization. We also have a good amount of administrative oversight in which, you know, even though employees are trusted, they are still, actually, there's not administrative oversight in every service area, but in certain service areas, it definitely helps, and specifically in animal control, you know, following and tracking the performance of different calls and, you know, seeing the results of different house calls and such really helps the organization stay firm and steady in terms of its mission. And then, you know, there's the delineation of the chain of command. We have task specialization. As discussed before, there's a lot of open communication and weekly meetings that get everyone on the same page. There is, again, a lot of flexibility and adaptability of the organization. And even though its core mission remains the same, the means in which it goes about doing that and accomplishing that change on a yearly basis, just based on the abilities of the org at any given year. And then there are, unfortunately, some inhibitors to excellence. We see the lack of stable annual funding being one of them that is most significant and influences a lot of the other inhibitors to excellence. And that lack of stable funding results in a lot of these other ones, including the over-reliance on volunteerism. Certain service areas can't have volunteers, like animal control or veterinary services, obviously, but the kennel services division really leans heavily into volunteerism, which works in the meantime and works for an organization which has a small budget, but this doesn't really allow the retention of talent or the specialization and like attainment of individual excellence of certain employees, because they're just not there long enough. They're not getting paid. You know, they're often young in high school and such when I volunteered. So I think that can be somewhat of an inhibitor on excellence. And then they have limited operation space. They really primarily operate out of one facility in Long Beach, but covering all these different cities means that the kennel often becomes overcrowded, and different initiatives have to take place in which to like get animals out quickly, you know, like free cat adoptions where everyone can just go grab 3 cats and whatnot for free. You know, that it is a limiting factor in terms of providing the best possible care for the animals. And then there's an absence of strong financial motivators and an inability to maintain long-term staff. As with the volunteerism point, there isn't a whole lot of money in the program, let alone for salaries and such. And this makes, you know, acquiring talent very difficult, and keeping talent in terms of long-term career options, it's a bit of a tougher sell. You really have to be hooked through the value structure, I think, to really make a long-term decision and long-term stay with the organization, because the compensation is just not good. And then finally, we have kind of a relaxed managerial attitudes that contribute to an inhibition of excellence, in which it's very much relaxed. A lot of the staff is quite young, and again, very camaraderie attitude in terms of the attitudes between staff. Everyone's on the same page and very friendly, but this kind of does hamper the organization in some sense, because there isn't a whole lot of chewing out if somebody does something wrong. You know, the staff and the employees are all very friendly, but that isn't always the best attitude to have as a manager, because there is tough organizational decisions that need to be made and adjustments that need to be made that are inhibited if you're friendly with everyone that works under you. And with that, I believe that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Owen? Okay, very well done. I think, a couple of really important points. The one, the goal congruence, for an organization such as that, that's one of the primary motivating factors is, there's kind of that esprit de corps within the organization. Everyone shares a similar goal. And the lack of resources from the open system. I mean, that really has a big impact, as you mentioned, on just about every aspect of the organization. And so I think those are 2 really good and very important points. So good job, Owen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see. By my count, if my count is correct, we have 3 more presentations. And so I'll open the floor up for whoever wants to go next.
I can go next.
Okay. All right. Now the floor is yours.
Everybody can hear me okay, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. And you can see my PowerPoint without my
Yes.
notes?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be doing my presentation on the Orange County Social Services Agency. I will be focusing on the Family Self-Sufficiency Division. So let's get started. So here we have the executive summary outline. In this presentation, I'm going to be providing a brief introduction and background information on the organization, identify illustrative management practices of the organization, and discuss classical and neoclassical organization theories that are present in FSS. I will also go over the type of system that my organization best reflects and touch on organizational characteristics that contribute to excellence. So some background on this organization. So Social Services Agency, or just SSA for short, is comprised of 4 divisions and has over 4,000 employees. The Family Self-Sufficiency Division, or FSS, as I will be calling it going forward, has 4 CalWorks regional offices in Orange County and 1 foster care regional center that are open to the public. And in addition, there's also 1 administration office. The mission of FSS is to move eligible families from dependency on government assistance programs to self-sufficiency. So FSS does provide various types of benefits and supportive services through CalWorks, which is your cash assistance for families, CalFresh, which is your food assistance, and Medi-Cal, which provides healthcare benefits. We also provide refugee cash assistance, foster care, CalLearn, and Well Food to Work. And so you'll see here on this slide, there's the 5 different offices that we have in Orange County. Our administration office did not fit on this slide, so I did not put that in here. Okay, so there is a standard hierarchy structure in FSS, in the FSS division, and in each regional offices. So way at the top on this slide, we have the division director. This closely follows by 2 deputy division directors, or also our AM3s. One of the AM3s oversees the FSS divisional and regional operations. And the other one on the right-hand side is in charge of policy and quality assurance. So going back to the left side of this slide, the hierarchy structure that follows the AM3, the AM2 ends with the clerical staff. And then on this right side, which is under your policy and quality assurance, your hierarchy structure ends at the triple S1 level. So you can kind of see the flow of how it pretty much the hierarchy structure is set. Whether if you're at a region, or if you're under the PQA department. So the model of organization that best reflects the approach of an organization is the open system model. Coordination and control of work activities are contingent upon many factors, and there is a combination of strategies that are used in organization to motivate staff. So as illustrated in the previous org chart, the organization relies on direct supervision to coordinate and control work activities. Chain of command is very much the norm across all divisions in SSA, including FSS. And in my opinion, the type of direct supervision in FSS is best represented by Bernard. Leadership often ties directives to the organizational purpose, its values, and the individual's personal gains. Standardization of values is another mechanism for control and coordination that is used in FSS and also in SSA. SSA does have a strong set of core values that organizational leaders like to refer to as the heart of SSA. You can see the illustration here. Some of the core values under which the organization operates includes integrity, diversity, teamwork, thoroughness, and others, as you can see in the heart. Our leaders often do communicate and reinforce these values with campaigns like Heart of SSA Core Values in Action, which illustrates a core value each month and recognize individuals who demonstrated a specific core value. These values drive staff behavior and decision-making in the organization. This mechanism of coordination and control is reinforced by Bernard's inducements contribution theory, which highlights the power of goal congruence and instrumental rewards to motivate staff so that they can meet or exceed role requirements. Taylor and Bernard's rewards per performance strategy is also much very evident in my organization. So to motivate employees, the agency has economic rewards that are tied with annual performance evaluations. So those staff that are not maxed out of their pay scale may receive a pay step increase with their annual review if they meet or exceed their role expectations. So going on to the classic organization theories that are manifested in our organization, hierarchy of authority is the first one that comes to mind. Seen in a prior slide, FSS relies on direct supervision and managerial hierarchy to coordinate and control work activities. The supervisor's primary role is to monitor the individual's performance of each staff member in their unit. So we meet with subordinate staff to conduct monthly review of their work that was completed. We suggest areas for improvement if it's needed, and we also share any rule changes to any rules or procedures. Legal compliance. So as a public social services agency that provides these types of government assistance benefits to the public, adherence to the rules and regulations is essential. Staff who continuously fail to meet the established performance standards may be placed in a corrective action plan by the supervisor. And so the idea is to get the employee to achieve minimum essential key functions of their job and also to adhere to these formal directives that they have been given. And those staff that do not comply with the corrective action plan and do not improve their performance can face disciplinary action. In regards to Taylor's scientific management theories, some of those are embodied in my organization through the financial incentives and performance evaluation, which I briefly touched in the prior slide. The five core competencies that are used to measure the individual's work performance is job knowledge and skills, the work habits and quality, productivity, effectiveness, interpersonal skills. and attendance and punctuality. Staff can obtain and exceed meets or does not meet in each core competency. And those raises are dependent on the overall rating of the evaluation and whether the staff member has reached the max step for the classification. So the higher the step increase, the higher their raise will be. As far as a principal school, I felt that the scalar principle and functional principle are present in FSS. The scalar principle suggests that in a series of superior-subordinate relationship, the superior is ultimately responsible for getting the job done. In the FSS division, we do see this with our monthly case reports, and we do have a lot of these reports. Line staff are responsible for processing these reports, but supervisors need to ensure that the work is ultimately done. I also found a coordinative principle that was present in my organization. This can be seen through the various coordination efforts via chain of command and with our administration team that is responsible for establishing these rules and procedures so that we may achieve our organizational objectives. Collective, so in regards to the neoclassic organization theories, specifically starting with Follett's theories, collective problem solving and participative management are two of the ways these neoclassic organization theories are exemplified in my organization. Within the FSS division, we have what is known the Family Support Assessment process for CalWORKs and refugee cash assistance families. These goal-oriented collaborative meetings include SSA staff, and that can include your eligibility worker, your case manager, the supervisor, service providers like our behavioral health services, public health nurse, family resource staff, and even shelter and housing staff. So that specific CalWORKs family that's experiencing a crisis, usually, we'll meet with this team. And then during this interactive meeting, we discuss the participants' strengths, needs, and action steps. Everyone that participates in this meeting is engaged in the search for an integrative solution to address that family's crisis. So whether it be homelessness, safety concerns, mental health, or even immigration issues. The goal is to utilize the holistic and supportive approach so that we can assist this family and help them overcome these barriers and promote self-sufficiency. So it kind of all falls back into the self-sufficiency component. Follett's theories of integration or participated management is also seen across divisions in SSA, including FSS. As new policies and procedures are being developed in the organization, work groups consisting of line staff, supervisors, and management are formed. And so the idea is to involve the individuals that are going to be impacted with the implementation of these new policies and procedures, and provide them an opportunity to contribute to the decision-making process. McGregor's theory Y and Likert theories on high performance goals and building human capacity are also integrated in the FSS division. This is particularly seen with our CalWORKs 2.0 holistic approach, which is currently being used not only with our clients, but it's also starting to get incorporated with our staff. So through these monthly conferences with subordinate staff, the supervisor utilizes these CalWORKs 2.0 tools. And we do have a couple. So we have goal storming, my goal plan, my roadmap, speed bumps and shifting gears. And we explore short-term and long-term goals or career development that the employee may have. So for example, my roadmap or speed bumps and shifting gears helps think logically through the steps to achieve a long-term goal or a complicated goal. And it breaks it down into multiple steps. And then the idea is to involve the individual in the decision-making process and reinforce the value of setting and achieving goals for both personal and professional. So in regards to systems theory, SSA shares many characteristics of an open systems theory. The organization administers, essential government assistance programs that families rely on to be able to provide necessities such as food, shelter, and access to healthcare. All which are subject to socio-political influences. An open system allows for the organization to exchange resources and information with the community, their contracted partners, and other nonprofit organizations. SSA is very much dependent on these external actors, and as a result, there is continuous change to policies and procedures. So most recently, with the arrival of the Afghan refugees, FSS had to adapt on how they conducted business to accommodate this population. SSA collaborated with numerous community and faith-based organizations in their outreach efforts, and we've actually enrolled over 500 Afghan refugees for public assistance benefits as of, I believe that status from March. In these past 2 years, like in many other organizations, SSA and FSS, which is a division under SSA, had to adjust to the way we conducted business as a result of the pandemic. So we used technology and revised the operational processes in order to keep staff safe, while at the same time also ensuring that clients had access to the services that they needed. And so both FSS and SSA reflect symbolic management theory and human resources theory characteristics. I mentioned the Heart of SSA campaign in an earlier slide, and the core values in action. It's a testament to the clear vision of underlying values at our organization. The employees' commitment to the mission and goals of the organization contributes towards a strong organizational culture. FSS provides many opportunities for everyone to participate in the decision-making process. This can be seen through work groups, especially when there's a potential that it can change the way that staff conduct business. In this organization, developing a worker's talent is also encouraged. We often get rotational transfer opportunities, and anyone interested can submit their interest to learn another assignment if they wish to do that. In addition, SSA encourages staff to pursue their education, and actually currently is offering $10,000 per year that can be used to pay for college courses, seminars, training materials, and any other classes that may assist with the development of the worker's talents. Excellence ultimately is achieved when divisional goals are attained, adherence to the mission and core values of the agency are maintained, and quality services are provided to the public. And that is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Very well done. It's really good to see those human resource types of initiatives in the organization, because they can be resource intensive, but it's good to see organizations devote the resources to those types of initiatives. So very good. Thank you. Okay, I believe by my calculations, I think we have 2 more presentations. And so Perla or Bernie? Perla?
Good morning, Professor. I can go next.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and is everyone able to see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So mine will be a little bit maybe similar to Uyuki's presentation earlier, but I'll be focusing on a different division of the Social Services Agency of Orange County. And so I will be focusing on the Assistance Programs Division. We'll be going over a brief introduction of the agency as a whole and also of the division. We'll be going over some illustrative management practices of the organization, taking a deeper dive into how some of our theories that we've been learning about are applied in terms of the classical organization theories, the neoclassical organization theories, the systems theory, and then overall, what is the impact of the organization on excellence and how are we striving to maintain it or achieve it. So a brief introduction, background of the Social Services Agency of Orange County. This agency is led by one director and multiple division directors. There are 4 divisions, so the administrative division, assistance programs, family self-sufficiency and adult services, and children and family services. So with these divisions too, is they administer federal, state, and county social services programs that are in alignment with the mission and statement. Okay, so one moment. Are you able to see my presentation, Professor? Not sure.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
I wasn't sure if you could see 2 screens or not. Okay. All right. Okay. And so what this agency does is it also, because of the number of programs that are administered, you can see on there that we serve about 1 in 4 Orange County residents because we are such a large agency and also very large county. And so because we also serve so many different people, we do have a large organization with over 4,200 employees and a very significant budget of $1 billion. So that is an overview of the agency as a whole. So now we'll go ahead and take a closer look at the assistance division of the agency. Okay, and so with the divisions all lined up, pretty much the Orange County Board of Supervisors is who provides the guidance to the social services agency. So here we have the 3 divisions that are aside from assistance programs, and on the right is that assistance programs. So the assistance programs division director does go ahead and focus on the administration of the assistance programs, which include Medi-Cal, CalFresh, General Relief, and cash assistance programs for immigrants. Oh, my apologies. And within this division, the division director does go ahead and supervise deputy directors that are responsible for various operations, most importantly, the regional centers, which are public facing sites. And so we have 2 deputy directors who are responsible for the regional centers. We have various locations throughout the county in Anaheim, Laguna Hills, Santa Ana, Garden Grove, and a call center. And then we also have a section that is for the operations and policy team as well. And they oversee staffing and strategic planning. And they go ahead and also provide guidance to those regions that are also being supervised by the other deputy directors. So the mission of the assistance program division is to ensure optimum health and nutrition for Orange County residents. And that is exactly based on the programs that they are administering. So that is their organizational structure. So now to go over the illustrative management practices of this division, we pretty much have a mix of all the different models in this organization. The open systems model is because we do have to be very flexible with the external environment. We have different changes happening pretty much on a daily basis. Policies change, directives change, sometimes even just emergencies happen. So with the fires recently, you can mention like the Afghan refugee movement that's been happening, those do eventually trickle down into our day of life at the offices there, because we do see like an influx, maybe an increase of these services we have to provide, and we have to adapt to that and be kind of change our processes to accommodate. We also see the rational goal model at play here. We also see like the internal process model and the human relations model. And so with the internal process model, the rational goal model, we are seeing that we have like combination of coordination of how to kind of work on some of these activities. So we have communication is very important. Management is very important, that information. We do have a centralized location of resources that is kind of managed by our operations and policy team. So our staff know exactly where to find that information if they need to on our internet and where they can find it. We have these policy and guidelines that dictate how we're going to carry out that work. And then we also go ahead and have performance measurement evaluations. We do have those 5 categories that staff are evaluated based on, which is their interpersonal skills, program knowledge, work habits, and attendance. And we also have efficiency measures. So each program and each also assignment kind of has like a set of expectations of what they're supposed to be performing at. So we do go ahead and look at that from that model. For the internal process model, we do have records management in terms of where we store information. A lot of the stuff that we sometimes have to be involved in is sometimes open for public record. So we do have to be mindful of our records and also keep in mind our internal policies and guidelines to make sure that we are continuous with those processes. For the human relations model, this is going to be where we really just want to promote and enhance the skill set of our staff, and also make sure that we prepare them for the job that they're supposed to be doing based on the program that they're administering and their assignment based on their job classification. So we do have like new employee orientations. We send them to training to learn the program that they're going to be administering. And then we also value a lot of their work and recognize it in different ways, whether that be through merit increases on their performance measures, or we also go ahead and recognize them with even just open recognition. So we do have, for example, like newsletters where we can nominate and acknowledge certain staff. We also have certain regions that have bulletin boards where they nominate and also recognize their staff there, just so that staff can really feel that appreciation. And we also have committees at these regions that are for morale purposes. So their goal is to increase morale, boost morale, maintain it through different terms of sets of activities. For the mechanisms for coordination and control, we do have a variety as well. They are direct supervision. A lot of these, based that we saw in the hierarchy, they do have a tall hierarchy there. So most supervisors will supervise a unit of workers, and they'll be responsible for their employees' work. They have to review it, monitor it, and then that is pretty much across the board over every office. They all have units, and each unit can be anywhere between 3 to possibly 11 employees, and one supervisor is supervising all of those. We also have the standardization of values. There is a clear mission and vision for the division, but within that, we also have those 12 core values that we definitely promote and have our staff use those not only to communicate and work with the population that they serve, but also internally as well. So we like to practice those for our internal and external customers. And those include efficiency, thoroughness, compassion, integrity, courtesy, just because we are, not only are we trying to provide quality services to our clients, but also we're trying to ensure that they are the correct and accurate benefits. And so thoroughness and accuracy are very, very important. Then we go ahead and look at making sure that the individuals that are hired through the Assistance Divisions Program, Assistance Program Division, are also an alliance with the division's values. A lot of the individuals here that come to work and apply for this division do want to help those in need, and they have those kind of similar values that we have in place. And the last one is the standardization of work processes. We do have policies and procedures in place that show how staff are to process a certain task, a certain program based on the job classification. And this goes ahead and really just make sure that we are following state and county and federal guidelines as well. So that's what helps us kind of put us in check to make sure that we are staying in compliance and we won't be sanctioned eventually if we fall out of that. So they're there for that reason. Employee motivations, we have a couple. We have goal congruency, such as I mentioned. We do aim to hire staff who have similar goals and values that are congruent to the divisions. And so that is because of the type of population that we serve. So we do tend to attract a lot of individuals with social work or human services background. And also just with the desire to want to help those in need. So having them already with that kind of already motivates them, knowing that they're impacting these families, it gives them that intrinsic motivation. Job identification, again, they just kind of find it rewarding doing the work that they're doing. They find it interesting, they find it challenging at times, but that's what helps them also continue to learn. So what some of our staff do is they will go ahead and learn a new program, or they'll go to a different assignment within the division if they feel like they would like to find something more challenging. And then that's how they can also continue to grow and develop their skill set. And the last one is the legal compliance. So this is going to be tied more to, in addition to the policies and procedures in place, it's tied to the memorandum of understanding that we have for the classification. So they do know that they do have to perform a certain number of tasks and duties that are already agreed upon between the county and their labor union based on the memorandum of understanding. We also then have classical organization theories. So there are a couple, the first one being Weber's Guide to Bureaucracy with the hierarchy of authority. So as their organization chart demonstrates, there is a tall hierarchy. So everyone follows a chain of command. And that is how it's really communicated to staff. So they know exactly who their immediate supervisor is and who they're supposed to go to with questions or they need something. And if it needs to be escalated, it goes on up to the next second level supervisor and so forth before it goes to the manager and higher up. We do have a system of rules with, again, kind of just gives everyone an overview of how they are to do their assignment and their job. And that is just to make sure that we can continue to operate efficiently as an organization. We are such a large division, the largest division actually in the agency. So we do have to make sure that we have this in place, as well as business processes to continue to provide the services to our clients. Next, we have tailored scientific management, performance measurement. So as I'd mentioned, we do have evaluations for our staff where their direct supervisor meets with each individual and goes over these kind of core competencies to make sure that staff are aware of how they're performing in each of these. And they can go ahead and either meet the core competencies, does not meet, or exceeds. And they can also understand what are some areas that they can work on based on those evaluations, and whether or not they're a good fit for the division and for us to be able to meet our objectives here. We also have centralized planning and control. So here you can see on the chart, the assistant division does have its own staffing and strategic planning department, and also the policies and operations. So this is pretty much who helps with the policy guidelines when we get new policy updates from the state or federal government. They also go ahead and provide business function support, which provides staff with the step-by-step operational guidelines on how to carry out that new change. So we do have at least that department that handles all of it for all of the regional centers and communicate that to them. For the neoclassic organization theories, starting out with Fouillet's theories, the genuine democracy, we do have a lot of different work groups or just initiatives where we involve different levels of classifications, ranging from frontline staff to managers, especially when it's going to be impacting maybe a certain department. They want to make sure that they include all those perspectives and take them into account when developing and implementing new processes. And so they really just value that intake from that individual, and that they're also their experience. So they really give the opportunity for those to provide feedback and insight into these discussions. And what happens is they go ahead and discuss, and then that kind of goes into like the group will, based on the information provided and the feedback provided. That way they can identify exactly, okay, this was a work group discussion, this is what we decided on, and this is how our division is going to implement this new policy. They also go ahead and take into consideration this as a whole with our strategic planning. We do have surveys that go out to our staff, asking them kind of what are our weaknesses, our strengths, areas of improvements, and they can go ahead and participate that. It's open to everyone. And then also let us know exactly what are some future key activities that we can keep on the horizon. The leadership also from Fouillet is very, very evident. What they like to do is typically staff have the opportunity to be acting supervisor or acting second level supervisor in the when there's an absence of their supervisor there. They can typically like assign someone from that union to be acting in that capacity. And that gives someone the opportunity to kind of get a feel for what it's like to be in that supervisor leadership position without necessarily having the title per se, but they are getting that chance to exercise that type of direction and that guidance to others and their peers around them. For McGregor's theories, the agency is very much in alignment with theory Y. And so the reason why they have this is because they really want to make sure they prepare their employees and their staff to be a better asset to the division as a whole. So they offer various programs, one of them being like the career advisory program. This is kind of something that they put in place to guide non-supervisory staff on what type of maybe path they would like to take within the division. They also like to go ahead and offer trainings to enhance certain skill set. They also go ahead and have that tuition reimbursement to go ahead and further their higher education. So they really go ahead and make sure that they allow staff to go ahead and reach out their own professional goals by offering these different just types of resources that are pretty much within their reach. Anyone can go ahead and take advantage of these. They just have to go ahead and apply for them or submit them, and they can go ahead and take advantage of these resources that are being definitely offered by the division. For this systems theory, the division is an open systems, again, because of the type of services that are being provided. We do have to be very, very adaptable. That is something that our staff continuously do on a monthly, daily basis, depending on the situation at hand. We also have to keep in mind the resources that we have to use. So for example, with the pandemic, we definitely had to take into consideration our staffing, how we're going to be servicing our customers. So for example, with the division, what they did, because they are the largest division that are seeing customers, they went ahead and implemented drive-through kind of stations for customers to come in and pick up their benefits and also seek assistance. They went ahead and started extending like their call center hours, working on Saturdays, promoting a lot of the online resources to make sure that clients could still submit their applications, still get the assistance that they needed. So they went ahead and looked at all the potential resources, whether it be their staffing, technology, or even just an adjustment in processes to go ahead and meet the needs of the population that we serve. So we definitely had to make sure that we were flexible and staff were flexible as well, and they understood the reason behind that change. We are very subject to social political influences. Again, that is because of the programs that we administer. They are tied to public policy. So whenever the government decides to change anything regarding these programs or expand, that trickles onto the counties who have to administer that change and then decide if we have the bandwidth and the resources to do so as well. As a public agency, we are subject to public accountability. Sometimes this division, because again, we are the ones that are interacting mostly with the public, with our regional offices and our call center, well, sometimes there'll be like maybe news articles in the Orange County Register or of an incident or something that happened. So we have to keep in mind exactly that we are following our mission, that we're providing quality services, that we're also being as accessible as possible to our customers, depending on the situation at hand. So that's something that we definitely keep in mind of how we communicate with our not only our internal customers, but our public as well, and that we're making ourselves accessible to them regardless of the situation. For the impact of the organization on excellence, we really just have the symbolic management theory and the quality management theory. Our deputy director is very, very vocal and present in her communication to staff and in her demonstration of the values as well that we go ahead and present. So there's a very strong organizational culture that she goes and presents, and that trickles down to her leadership team and down to the divisions as well. And that is that commitment to the organization's purpose. Those core values, again, are really just evident. Staff can go ahead and practice those, reach out to even the director through a director's corner that they went ahead and they implemented. And then for the quality management theory, against the goal congruence strategy. So a lot of the goals that our staff have also align with our division's goals. So that is why we're able to definitely meet the public's needs and provide them and with quality services in an empathetic manner. And then we have continuous improvement. So we're also looking at the quality of services that we're delivering. Can we improve that? Can we also maybe reach clients that we're not reaching with our direct contact? So for example, if we're looking to maybe look at more partnerships with community-based organizations, or if we're looking to maybe expand on a certain community that we're not maybe addressing as much, whether it be because of the lack of access. And the way that we go ahead and measure excellence is through a variety of measures. So we have performance measures that are in place, specifically a business plan. And this business plan kind of outlines exactly what objectives we're supposed to be meeting with each of the programs that are within the assistance divisions program, and how we can make sure that we're staying in compliance and meeting certain targets. We have talent management. And so we want to make sure that we are continuously offering training to our staff to enhance their skill set again, also succession planning, preparing them for the next step. We do anticipate a lot of retirees in the next couple of years. We want that transfer of knowledge to be applicable to our newer staff and also to retain them. We are having a difficult time attracting more, more potential applicants, potential employees, not just because of the level of work that it is involved with, but just because the pay is not there sometimes. So we are kind of looking to see what other, in the meantime, what other options we can offer them for them to, continue to stay with the division. And then deliver quality services. So we're also assessing exactly like how are we delivering the services to our customers, and also if there's a way that we can enhance that. In terms of inhibiting to the excellence, really there's been a lot of the feedback is when there's a lot of red tape, especially within the division. And that's because a lot of changes have to go through so many people. And even though we are very open to feedback from staff, from just different levels of classification, it has to go through a lot of different reviews and processes. So we feel that that could be something that inhibits kind of the excellence, because there might be more effective ways to do something, but something that doesn't make it all the way. And so that is just kind of something that we do see quite a bit. And that was something that was actually brought forth in our survey that we were preparing for our strategic planning. And that is what I have for the Assistance Programs Division. Any questions?
Any questions for Perla? Okay, very well done, Perla. A lot of good information there. The one thing I really like is the discussion of how people can be acting supervisors, because that's not only number one, a great motivator, but number two, it's great for succession planning as well, to develop those skills so you have a pipeline of leadership and management. So I think that's a great practice for the organization. So very well done. Thank you, Perla. Okay, and I believe we are down to our final presentation, and that is Bernie.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, let's start my clock. Okay, my organizational analysis is on the Bellflower Public Works Department. For background, the city of Bellflower was incorporated in 1957 as a general law city. We have a council manager form of government. We're a prototypical contract city in that we contract for major services. That includes fire, police, refuse service collection, to name a few. The Public Works Department is one of 7 departments in the city of Bellflower. And our mission statement is to design, build, operate, and maintain the city of Bellflower's public facilities and infrastructure in a manner that is safe, sustainable, economical, and attractive. The Bellflower Public Works Department consists of 3 divisions. These are administration, which consists of 8 full-time equivalents. It houses engineering, environmental services, and contract management. The Facilities Maintenance Division, consisting of 14 full-time equivalents, and the Street Maintenance Division, consisting of 12.3 full-time equivalents. I listed some of the responsibilities here on the screen, but for the sake of time, I won't read through these. The chart before you is the Public Works Department organizational chart. The trend lately seems to be for directors to serve a dual role as assistant city managers. So that's the case in the city of Bellflower. Our public works director also serves as the assistant city manager. The public works manager is the second in command. Therefore, for about 50% of the time, the public works manager actually runs the entire department. It's a top-down hierarchy, strictly chain of command at certain points. So this is the illustration here. In regard to illustrative management practices, the models of organizational effectiveness that we implement are internal process model, rational goal model, and the open systems model. Again, we're heavy on the classical, but we're also open in that we're always facing constant changes. Mechanisms for coordination and control include direct supervision, standardization of work processes, standardization of work outputs. As far as motivational strategies, these include legal compliance, rewards for performance, and considerate leadership. Regarding the elements of the classical organizational theory, we implement Weber's ideal type bureaucracy. In regard to fixed official duties, again, this is the separation of the divisions, admin, streets, and facilities. The hierarchy of authority is illustrated by our organizational chart and chain of command. The system of rules is displayed by the employee classification manuals, which contain all the duties and responsibilities that we expect out of all of our employees. We also have elements of tailored scientific management theory. Performance measures are through employee performance evaluations, which allow us to rate our specific staff, and also work standardization. And this is through city staff manual policies, which will dictate certain processes, whether it's inspection of sidewalks or responses to sewer overflows, for example. Regarding the elements of human relations theory, we implement policy theory of integration. This is through collective problem solving. An example is biweekly tailgate safety meetings, in which we allow all our staff, doesn't matter what rank, what position they are, to voice their opinions in regard to the practices that they're implementing. After all, they're the ones doing the actual work. A lot of times we implement some of the recommended changes, so that allows them an opportunity to feel like they're part of the team, which they are. Another element is weighing the law of the situation, and we do this through public works staff meetings. These are all hands meetings, and again, we do not observe a specific position. We listen to everybody's issues or concerns, and if it makes sense for the department as a whole, we go ahead and implement the recommended changes. So again, we're not looking at our maintenance workers as we're down there, we're up here. At these meetings, we look at ourselves as equals. We do have McGregor's theory X and Y, as has been mentioned. Regarding theory X, a lot has to do with our maintenance ops and also the adherence to strict inspections, regulations, and guidelines. Although our supervisors want to give flexibility, there are times where if we don't follow the cookbook, so to speak, we can face potential liability, lawsuits, potential fines from other regulatory agencies. And that's where theory X element comes in. However, we do have theory Y. An example is the management of capital projects. We give a lot of deference to our staff in running projects, and that's from inception. We let them go out and seek grant funds so that we can execute some of these projects. We let them hire our contract staff, construction management if necessary, and we let them deal with potential changes that can lead about to change orders or changes in scope and also the budget for the project. If the project is successful, again, that provides job enrichment, and then also provides intrinsic rewards in the form of acknowledgement, and we do this through employee newsletters. This is an example of the actual recent employee newsletter. So we do highlight our new employees. For example, my analyst had a baby, so we made the guys go to her baby shower. And to the right, it shows again an example of a successful capital project in that we've been able to gain $30 million in the span of 4 years. So our hope is that our staff will look at this and also motivate them to go out there and seek successful projects as well. In regard to systems theory, we operate again on an open system due to external impacts that we face. A lot of these are from state and federal regulations. For example, beginning of this year, we had the SB 1383 organic waste recycling requirements that impacted not just our commercial customers, but also our residential customers. And I mentioned stormwater regulations that require us to capture large volumes of stormwater and urban runoff at the tune of $20 million projects, which are hard to fund. We also have elements of negative entropy and equifinality. Again, because we don't see the light at the end of any tunnel. Every year is something different, new regulations, new challenges. And even though our sister agencies face the same challenges, we all get there by different means since we're all competing for these grant funds and sources. Regarding the impact of the organization on excellence, we are constantly gauging the performance of our department, not just our operations, not just our contract employees, but also our internal staff. Some of the good characteristics are transparency, inclusion, teamwork, and flexibility. Inhibiting characteristic that I've seen in my 22 years here is the communication breakdowns with other departments. And that can lead to loss of energy, lack of morale, and that's something that we try to avoid. So we work really hard to have an open relationship with our system departments. The determination of excellence is achieved through community surveys. We call them Tell Us How We're Doing. These are on a Likert scale where the community that gets our service gets to tell us how we're doing. And we also have anonymous suggestion boxes. We make those available to any staff member. You don't have to put a name, but tell us how we're doing. How do we see that we are succeeding? That's by retention of staff. The photo that I included here are actual service awards. So 3 of the individuals here have over 30 years of service with our department. There are 2 that have over 20, including myself, and there are 2 that have over 10 years of service. We do not have any turnover. People love working for our department. So the assistant city manager and I view it as one of the telltales of our success. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Bernie. Any questions or observations for Bernie? Yeah, a couple of important things. One, the employee recognition. Seems like the organization's very good at engaging those recognitions of employees. And the other thing is in terms of measuring excellence, it looks like you've got some good direct as well as indirect measurements, and that you've got some indirect measurements with your customer surveys, and then you also have some direct measurements in terms of your high levels of employee retention. I think that's very good and very important to have both those direct and those indirect assessments as well. So very good. Well done, Bernie. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think unless, again, my math is incorrect, I think we have covered everyone. I think everyone's had a chance to do their presentation. Again, great job on the presentations. Your PowerPoint skills are certainly on point and much better than mine, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the time and the effort you put into putting these presentations together. Again, the whole purpose of this endeavor is just to see those similarities between the different organizations and how the theories and the concepts and schools of thought really do apply across almost all of our organizations, regardless of the sector, whether they're public or private or nonprofit. And I think it just really underscores what Graham Allison always told us about the differences between the sectors, is that what we do is similar. It's just sometimes how we do it that's a little different between different types of organizations. So again, very well done. That wraps up what I had on the agenda for today and our last class session. Again, your organization analysis paper and your final exam are due by midnight tonight. I'll be working on those this weekend. Hopefully have the grades all done by Monday or so and get those final grades up and ready for you by Tuesday. And now you get a little bit of a break before you get into 697. But like I said, you'll have one live in-person session in 2 weeks for 697 to kind of get you started on the case studies. And then you'll be off and running working on those case studies throughout the remainder of the summer. So this first 697 section will be split up between myself and Dr. Butts. Then the second 697 section I will be handling. And so Dr. Butts and I will be splitting up that grading of those cases. Any last minute questions or anything, clarifications or anything at all before we call the day?
Just about the question about the in-person session, which is going to come up. Do you have a date in mind? So we come to, you know,
it'll be 2 weeks from today. So
okay, so we come to campus.
No. It will be online.
On Zoom,
yeah.
online. Okay.
Yes, yeah, everything will be online. It'll all be on Zoom. I believe that's, let me check my schedule. I think it's June 4th, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just double check. Yes, June 4th. But that will be a Zoom session beginning at 9 a.m. And again, Dr. Butts most likely will be handling that session for you. But it's all on Zoom. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, my pleasure. All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure working with you. I look forward to reading your organizational analysis papers and your final exams as they come in today. And wish you all the best of luck in 697. Dr. Butts will talk more with you about the grading and which of us will do the grading of which case study. But typically, we're going to change it a little bit up a little bit this summer. So I think the way in which you'll probably work is I'll be grading 3 of the cases, and Dr. Butts will probably be grading 2 of the cases. Chances are I'll be grading budgeting, HR, and org theory, and Dr. Butts will probably be grading the research methods and the policy analysis. I think that's probably how we'll handle the grading this summer, but he'll talk to you more about that in a couple of weeks. Okay? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I will be grading your papers and get your grades up for you, and we'll be talking to you very soon. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Bye,
Professor.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.